Thank you for joining us for the Math Counts Week Q&A with John Urschel. Before we get started, let's take a moment to meet our special guest. Whether it was solving puzzles as a toddler or teaching eager college students trigonometry, John has always considered himself to be a mathematician. But math is not his only talent. John is also an accomplished football player. He was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens in 2014 and played 3 seasons in the NFL as an offensive lineman. During his years on the field, John never stopped nurturing his passion for math. While playing for Penn State University's football team, he also earned his bachelor's and master's degrees in mathematics. At Penn State, John received numerous academic and athletic awards, including the Campbell Trophy. This award is given to the American college football player with the best combination of academics, community service, and on-field performance. He also received the Sullivan Award, given to the most outstanding amateur athlete in the United States. After 3 seasons in the NFL, John retired from the Ravens in 2017 to study math full-time. That year, he was identified by Forbes as one of the 30 most promising game changers under the age of 30 in the field of mathematics. Since then, John has published several research papers, and his memoir called Mind and Matter, A Life in Math and Football is a New York Times bestseller. Today, John continues to pursue his love of mathematics as a 4th-year PhD student at MIT. And of course, John is a former MATHCOUNTS competitor, and we're so proud to count him as a member of our alumni community. Thank you to all the students, coaches, and supporters who sent John questions. We hope you enjoy learning more about him and his unique experiences. Now, let's kick it over to John.
Hey guys, I'm John Urschel, MathCounts alumnus, former NFL offensive lineman, full-time mathematician. I gotta say, I'm really excited to be involved in MathCounts activities this week. Thank you for all the questions you guys sent in. There were a lot of amazing questions, which made it that much harder to just pick a few. I hope everyone's doing well, and I hope you guys have had a great week. Without further ado, let's get to the first question.
Hi, my name is Sierra Rodney, and I am an 8th grader at BCB Middle School in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. What was your most difficult math situation in your career, and how did you resolve it?
For me personally, and this is very atypical, a difficult decision I had was when I was deciding whether or not to play in the NFL, because this would put off my PhD. And so one of the most difficult math decisions I had to make was whether to sort of take a break from math to play football for a while, or to sort of keep doing math and get my PhD eventually. And I eventually decided to go into the NFL because I thought that I would have many years to sort of do mathematics later in my life, but you can only play football when you're young. I actually changed my mind a year later when I was in the NFL, and I decided that no, I actually did want to get my PhD in math right now, and that's what led me to be playing in the NFL while getting my PhD in math.
Hello, Mr. Urschel. I'm Nathaniel Sugarman. I'm a 6th grader from Chesapeake Science Point Public Charter School, and I read your book, Mind and Matter, your autobiography, and I just want to ask you a quick question. How can you apply calculus and derivatives and football and stuff? That's my question, and thank you.
Okay. It might be hard to notice, where calculus and derivatives show up in the world, especially when you're in math class and, you're being shown the definition of a derivative based off a limit and all of these different abstract things. But I would say that calculus, in my opinion, is actually one of the sort of most conceptually simple areas of math, because it really relates to things that we see and deal with in our everyday lives. Whether it's kinematics, which looks at the motion of some object, whether it's looking at statics, which looks at forces, I would say that these are really crucial concepts. And in football, whether it's the path of the football being thrown, this can be modeled by calculus. Whether it's the interaction of 2 opposing players coming into contact and looking at the force that each of them is bringing, looking at the point of contact, the angle at which they're making this contact, and looking at sort of how this relates to levers. I would say that calculus and derivatives, and more generally sort of physics, really is deeply tied into sort of good football technique.
Hi, my name is Brandon Zhu, and I'm a 6th grader at Sterling School in South Carolina. My question is, what advice do you have for kids who like math and sports?
If you like math and sports, I would really encourage you to do math and sports. I think these are two amazing things. I mean, first of all, as far as math goes, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but math is, it's such a fundamental thing in our world. I mean, this is truly the language that we use to explain the world around us, and it's a very fundamental thing. I would say even if you're not going to work in a STEM field, having some basic understanding of math is crucial, because if you don't understand math, it can be quite hard to function in this world. You're more likely to be misled. You will have a tougher time understanding and correctly interpreting statistics. And just more generally, you'll sort of lack the numeracy that's really required to succeed in the world. As far as sports go, I think that, not sports necessarily, but I think that every single person, whatever it may be that they're interested in or whatever it might be that they're into, every single person should really take part in some sort of group activity at some point in their lives, because I have to say the benefit of being on a team, for me in particular, being on a football team was really large. You come to learn how to interact with other people, to get used to other people depending on you, and most importantly, to get used to depending on other people. This is something that I feel doesn't really get stressed enough in school, how much, when you're out in the working world, wherever your job may be, how much you have to interact with other people, how much your job depends on the jobs of others. And so I would say that being a part of a team is just an amazing experience, whether it's a football team or the wrestling team or the soccer team, or even if it's not a sport, if it's, the chess club or the debate team or, anything like that. I would say that just being a part of a team is a really good experience.
Hello, my name is William Heilman.
And I'm Savannah Heilman.
And we attend Symbol Science Charter School.
We are both in 6th grade.
And we have a question for you. Why is 0 divided by 0 undefined instead of 0?
So, it's not so easy to sort of say exactly what 0 divided by 0 is, because, let me just give you some examples. A number divided by itself, if this number isn't 0, is always equal to 1. This is sort of, in some sense, an argument to making 0 divided by 0 equal to 1. A number divided by the negation of that number, if that number isn't 0, always equals negative 1. Like, 3 divided by negative 3 equals negative 1. That's sort of an argument for 0 divided by 0 to be negative 1. And in fact, you can make an argument for 0 divided by 0 to equal any number, because 0 times a equals 0 for any number a. And so, because you have all of these different reasonings and different answers, that 0 divided by 0 could very well be based off a reasonable argument and sort of taking a limit towards 0, that's why it's indeterminate instead of 0.
Hi, John. My name is Josh Frost. I've been a MATHCOUNTS coach for 22 years now. When people ask me what did I do as a kid to become better at math, I always point out that I played a lot of games like Monopoly, or did things that weren't really math-based, like lateral thinking puzzles, where you're just constantly asking yes or no questions, trying to logically figure out what may or may not have happened. I'm wondering, what games or activities did you do as a kid that built your number sense, your math skills, before you started actually studying math formally? Thanks.
So one of the best things my mother did for me when I was a kid is we would have a game night every week, and we would order pizza, and we would just play board games. We'd play things like Monopoly, like Connect 4, games like Sequence, like old games. And it was something I really enjoyed, because I really enjoyed competing against my mom and trying to win these games. And so, because these games really did have a sort of mathematical and sort of quantitative side to them, and I was very competitive and I wanted to win, it really led me to sort of use mathematical and quantitative skills in a very fun and enjoyable setting. And I have to say that that really built my sort of number sense and built my math skills, because I came to recognize at a very early age how math helps you win. Helps you win things like board games, but also helps you just sort of succeed in life. And so I would have to thank my mom for that, as well as my mom would always buy me these puzzle books and these like math workbooks when I was a kid, and this is something that I did a lot when I was very little. That was quite fun.
Hi, my name is Athena Wu. I'm an 8th grader at Northwest Junior High in Iowa. My question is, how has chess affected your studies in math? Thank you.
Chess actually hasn't affected my studies in math at all, really, because I really came to chess late in life. I didn't actually start getting into chess really until I was a junior in college, at which point, I'd been sort of involved in math my whole life. And so I would say more than anything, okay, chess is an enjoyable hobby that I really like taking part in, but I would say my enjoyment of chess is heavily affected by my mathematical studies. Because I sort of was a mathematician first, I would say that in chess I really enjoy things that have more of a mathematical and a sort of theoretical flavor in some sense. What I mean is when I'm playing chess, I enjoy trying to understand a given position I'm playing, try to understand what the correct move is in some sense, what the correct plan is in some sense. And I much less enjoy sort of crazy positions where it's very hard to sort of like understand or come to a final conclusion about the position, and you're just sort of playing with uncertainty. I enjoy sort of certainty in games, and so it's really sort of had an impact on my chess style in some sense.
My name is Mason Huffman. I am in 6th grade at Crestwell School, and I live in Florida. I have a question for Dr. Urschel. If you were stranded on a deserted island, who would you bring out of these 4 and why? 1. Neil deGrasse Tyson. 2. Elon Musk. 3. Pranav Mistry. Or 4. Richard Ruzick.
I think I would probably go for Elon. 1, just because, he's an interesting person, and 2, because I feel like he would be sort of a little bit better around the island. Like, we'd have to set up a hut, we'd have to find food. I feel like Elon would be a little more useful for the manual labor and also just the vision of, what our place would look like, how we would get water, how we would get food. I feel like Elon would be a pretty good choice.
Hi, I'm Zachary Perry, and I'm in 8th grade at Jonas Clark Middle School. I'd like to ask you a question. When you're learning a new math concept, what do you do?
That's a fantastic question. So even when you grow up and become a mathematician, you don't know everything, and you guys would be surprised to know how often in a given week, I'm working on some problem and I come to learn about some new ideas or some new technique that might be useful for what I'm working on, and I have to try to learn more about it. And I would say that it's really an amazing thing to be sort of a researcher in the 21st century, because for me, learning a new concept is much easier than, let's say, it was 50, 40, or even 30 or 20 years ago. Suppose I don't know about, let me make something up. Something called the matrix tree theorem. Someone tells me, John, there's this thing called the matrix tree theorem, which is very, very cool, and I don't know anything about it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a web page and I'm going to Google matrix tree theorem. Oftentimes there'll be a Wikipedia article, and although Wikipedia shouldn't be the end-all be-all because, well, it's not, necessarily information you should always trust, I would say that it's a very useful starting point because, okay, I go to this webpage for, let's say, the matrix tree theorem, and then on that webpage, first of all, I get a very brief and sort of broad description of what it is, what it ties into, and more importantly, I get a lot of references about every piece of information. And so I read through the Wikipedia article, which gives me now a broad understanding of what this is roughly. I click the links, whatever the references are, and I go and I look at those. And then also just a very, very useful thing is I can go into Google, I type in the name of the thing I want to know about, and then at the end, just put the word PDF or notes. And more often than not, you'll find a lot of different notes written by different mathematicians about the subject you're interested in, often from very different perspectives.
Hi John, my name is Ryan Leo. I'm in 8th grade. I'm from Acton, Massachusetts, and I go to RJ Gray. And I was wondering, obviously in football there's like an end goal, like something that you're trying to achieve. Like what is the goal for you in math? Like what's like your overall like pursuit out of all of this? Thank you.
So right now I'm finishing my PhD in math from MIT, and the next step for me is next year I'll apply for something called postdoctoral positions, which is a research position that is after your PhD and before becoming a professor. And really my sort of end goal or overall pursuit is not so much, to be a professor or to end up at a given place, but just to have a long and fruitful math career of, solving, difficult and interesting and important problems. I mean, really my overall pursuit is just to try to solve problems. It's a really nice career, I have to say. I mean, being a mathematician, every single day, all I do is I get to wake up and I just get to try to solve problems. And, you might ask, well, what are these problems like? Well, they're sort of very difficult math problems that no one else has ever solved. And in some sense, that makes it even more enjoyable than sort of like a puzzle you might find in a puzzle book, because it's something that no one's ever solved before, which is the concept that no one has ever solved this problem before. It's an exhilarating and enjoyable experience. And I have to say, the feeling that I get when I solve an unsolved problem is just like, I don't know. It's hard to describe. There's nothing quite like it.
John Urschel, this is Elise Bailey. I have 2 questions for you. Do you ever miss playing in the NFL, and what made you want to get a PhD in mathematics?
I would say that I actually don't really miss playing in the NFL, just because I'm really focused on mathematics right now. I would say that if I didn't have something else that I was really passionate about and really interested in, I probably would miss football. But because I just love mathematics so much and I love trying to solve problems, I don't really miss football in some sense. The thing that made me want to get a PhD in math is that I really love math, and I really love math research, which is trying to solve interesting open problems in math.
Hello, John Urschel. I am Alex Acosta, a 7th grader from the St. Albans School in Washington, D.C. What has been your experience as an underrepresented person of color in the field of mathematics? Do you think that it has helped you or hurt you? What is your advice for someone like me? Thank you.
So first off, I should just state the obvious. There's almost no black mathematicians. We often like to joke that we're like unicorns. I would say that for me personally, and I'm going to recognize that this is an unsatisfying initial answer, it's really had no noticeable impact on my experience, I would say, in many ways. I would say that I understand I'm definitely underrepresented, but somehow a lack of sort of like mathematical role models that look like me, or sort of a lack of people in my classes who look like me or who have shared experiences with me, somehow this never really had a big impact on me. But I would say that this is very much the exception. And I would say that the way that I learn mathematics and the way that I interact with mathematics is quite different than a lot of people. I would say that for the majority of my life, the way that I learned math was not in a classroom, but through a book. And I would say that even when I was a kid, like your age, I would always learn things from books. I would always read the textbook to learn things. I would never really like count on lecture or a teacher to teach me things. And the same was true in college, and the same still holds true, that I really learned best by reading by myself and interacting with sort of the math on my own. And so because of that, I didn't really like take part in class very much. I mean, okay, it's important to go to class, but I wasn't so engaged in the classroom so much, and so I never really felt like my mathematical experience was very closely tied to the people in my class or the person teaching my class, which made my experience a little strange. I have to say that speaking to other African American mathematicians, I have heard about a lot of experiences where people feel somewhat like, they can feel like they're somewhat of an outsider. They can feel somewhat like they don't belong. And I completely understand where these feelings come from, and it's tough. And I would say that, it's really going to be a long road to sort of fixing these issues because, quite frankly, sort of the divide between sort of like STEM achievement in different groups, the large majority of the damage is done before a student even steps foot on a college campus, which is a really sobering fact. And I have to say that me personally, I know I don't do as much as I should. I try to be a good role model for others to show that you don't just have to be a math person, to show that okay, the color of your skin really doesn't have anything to do with your ability to do math. But I do recognize that this is a true problem. And for instance, like if you look at the top math departments in the world, or just in the country, you're not going to find African American mathematicians. It's sad, but it's true, and hopefully this is something that starts to change in the future.
Hi, my name is Sarah Manchester. I am a MATHCOUNTS coach from Silver Spring, Maryland. And my question to you is, if you had mathematical superpowers and were granted the ability to solve one great unsolved problem in mathematics, which one would it be and why? Thank you.
I feel like a lot of mathematicians would choose the Riemann hypothesis here, but I think P versus NP would be a great unsolved mathematics problem that would be worth this magical ability, because it's really fundamental. It has to do with your ability to sort of solve problems quickly.
Hi, my name is Eddie Way. I'm an 8th grader from McCall Middle School. Since you're both really good at math and football, have you ever thought of becoming a football analytic?
That's a really great question. So there's this really cool area of football and math called football analytics, which more or less is all about applying quantitative and mathematical techniques to the study of football. And I do know a lot about this subject just by being a mathematician, being a former football player, and also being friends with a lot of football analysts, and just being interested in the two. I have to say right now, I've really made a conscious choice to stay away from football analytics, simply because there's so many different interesting areas in math, and I really want to start off by studying different areas of math that are not football analytics. I study things like numerical analysis, graph theory, machine learning, data science. These are things that are really interesting to me. But I will say that I think at some point in my life I will circle back, and I will take part in some very serious football analytics. So this is something that I'll definitely do in the future, especially because I have to say, football has been such a huge part of my life, and after you retire, it can be tough because you can feel somewhat isolated from the game, but I think that would be a great way for me to stay close to football.
My name is Charlie Fleming, and I am an 8th grader at South County Middle School in Virginia. What was the hardest part about balancing being a professional football player for the Ravens and a full-time student at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, getting your doctor's degree?
During the time when I was both an NFL football player and working on my PhD in math, I have to say that it really was quite tough, and I had to be extremely disciplined. I would do things in football, I would do things in math, and I would do nothing else. One thing I would say is that, I did manage to do this, and I definitely succeeded while doing both. But I think that while I was playing in the NFL and working on my PhD at MIT, especially in the fall when I was taking, a full course load at MIT math, and also, playing in the NFL, I think in hindsight that this was actually too much, and that I really was overworking myself. I'm gonna add one more thing. I know this is like the most long-winded answer to this question, but I will add that even in college, when I was a college football player and a sort of a math major, I think it's important to be honest with yourself about the things that are most important to you, and make sure that the things you're doing during the day sort of matches with the things that are most important to you.
Hi, my name's Dr. Kevin Hopkins. I teach mathematics at university and do some volunteer coaching for MATHCOUNTS in Bolivar Middle School in Bolivar, Missouri. My question would be, how do you see competition, and what would you say to students who are intimidated by the idea of competition in math or really just in life?
I would say competition is truly a beautiful thing if you take the right perspective. Competition is something that's had a huge impact on my life. I remember some of my sort of earliest math memories were sort of playing games with my mom where I was competing and trying to win. And in some way, competition is what makes things fun. It's what makes things enjoyable, to sort of not know who's going to outdo the other person, and just that sort of feeling of trying. I have to say that it's one thing that I really loved about football. It's one thing I love about math. I would say as a mathematician, competition is a little different in that it's not so much me competing with other mathematicians, but it's me competing against an unsolved problem. Me sort of fighting against the unknown, which is a little more abstract, but still it feels like competition. And I would say that it's always good to try to compete, because it really helps you sort of like, it helps test your mettle, see how good you are, and I think it's a really fun and enjoyable experience. And for those of you who might be intimidated by competition, I would tell you not to be. If you compete in something and you lose, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't say anything about you as a person. It's just another learning experience to help you try to grow, and that's the way you should look at it. I am going to read these questions, these this or that questions, and I'm just going to give you answers quickly. Chalkboard or dry erase board? Chalkboard. French fries or salad? Salad, watching my figure. Being the teacher or being the student? Being the student. I really do enjoy learning. Run offense or pass offense? I'm an offensive lineman, so run offense is always more fun. Theorems or postulates? I'm all about theorems. I really care about the provable guarantees. Heads or tails? I have to say, when I was a captain for Penn State football, I always picked tails. Flip-flops or sneakers? I'm a flip-flops type of guy. I gotta say that, if I'm gonna be casual, I'm going full casual. When playing chess, white pieces or black pieces? I like black pieces. I like letting the opponent move first and seeing what they're doing. Gatorade or water? Water. It's better for your health. Do I rate a 7 with a line through it or without? No line. Underdog or favored? I've been an underdog in most things in my life, so I prefer it. Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, or Ravenclaw? Oh man, I am gonna embarrass myself because I am not qualified to answer that. Isn't Gryffindor the good one? Instagram or TikTok? Instagram, but I'm really more of a Twitter person. Mechanical pencil or old school? I'm a mechanical pencil type of person. I like the modern things in life. That is the this or that section. Thank you for being a part of this question and answer, and I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for sharing about your experiences, and thank you to everyone in the Math Counts community who joined today's Q&A.